The globalists can all go to hell. I have come to Texas.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I want to say thank you to all the people that have signed up or subscribing. It's a start, and it makes me feel like I'm doing something that people care about. So if you sign up, please comment, give me a thumbs up, or if you think it's crap, give me a thumbs down. It's, we're not all alike. We don't all like the same things or dislike. So here we go. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen across our beautiful, huge country of Canada, our friends around the world in the known and unknown universe. Welcome back to your favorite Angry Canadian on the 7th day of November 2023. I agree with Viktor Orban 100%. Globalists who want to see plants all over the world making shit and just importing it because, well, we don't need friggin' jobs. They're just going to import everything and then, give you an allowance to go buy it? Come on. Where the hell are you from if you believe that shit? It's going to be a big cull of people. Oh, yeah, it's going to come. Just like the leaves falling off this walnut tree. It actually got me thinking. It happened about 10 days ago that the leaves started falling at incredible rate. I was watching it from the window and I got to go off with my camera. I mean, I've never seen it like this. So the tree is dropping all its leaves. They're not even changed color. We haven't even really had a big frost, but it's changing, getting ready for winter. How the hell did that come to be? Simple question. If you believe in evolution, what happened? Did the first trees freeze in the winter, so they had to come up with hibernation? But before we get to the first trees, how did the trees start? Was it a seed? How did they start? Because you know that trees start from seeds. Cherry pits, walnuts. Friggin' squirrels bury walnuts all over for winter. And then in the spring, they got all these little walnut trees coming up. It's nature. How did that come to be? And why didn't all the vegetation we enjoy go the way of the dinosaurs when that huge meteor hit in the Gulf of Mexico? That's what they're attributing to the large mass die-off of the dinosaurs. But even in that, not everything went. I mean, crocodiles, alligators are direct relatives of the dinosaurs. They even look like them. And now I have some major news coming out, and that is I want to run for Prime Minister of Canada. Now I know that there's things about like you got to be born in Canada, but it doesn't seem like the people born in Canada, Trudeau, Harper, Mulroney, gave two shits about Canada or Canadians. They care about themselves and their friends. I mean, young generation today don't know that we had a prime minister not long ago who was going to hotel rooms to receive $50,000 in cash in a yellow envelope. And that was a payoff from an airplane manufacturer. So you think that story is bad? Well, imagine when Mulroney was taken because he didn't pay taxes, so he had to do stuff like that, and he had to have a lawyer and all that. Long story short, his lawyer bill came up to around $2 million, and you know who paid for it? Oh, it just makes me tingle all over. taxpayers. Taxpayers that the government dislikes. Taxpayers who are ridiculed. Taxpayers who want truth and honesty. They don't want your truth, Trudeau, or your truth, Paul Revere, Pierre, whatever. PP, that's right. He's Pepe Le Pew. Pepe Le Pew. Crazy. I love watching clouds in time lapse. There's so much going on. It gets kind of like how the world is so much going on, but we're not aware of it. I mean, if you're standing out there, you're not seeing anything. Quite incredible. And then darkness. Ooh, holy smokes, look at that. It looks like explosions. But it wasn't. Just clouds. And most people weren't aware of them. That's what's happening in our world now, especially in Canada. A lot of people aren't aware of what's happening. They still want to put on their masks and take their jabs and do whatever the government tells them, or better yet, what the mainstream media, which is as corrupt in Canada as it is in the States, and that's my opinion, it's something has to happen, something major, because people, I guess they're just so easy to influence, to say whatever you want. They're just zombified.
Sedition, insurrection, a threat to democracy.
This city is under siege. They are now calling it an occupation.
Alarming situation there in Ottawa.
The police chief is calling it a nationwide insurrection driven by madness.
This is kind of our insurrection by air horn moment. I think it's part of the globalization of Trumpism.
Canadians know where I stand.
There hasn't been as much violence as some had perhaps projected, but that does not necessarily mean that it has been peaceful.
Reports of severe vandalism and criminal behavior.
Streets are clogged. The honking is incessant and deafening.
This pandemic has sucked for all Canadians.
Residents that I have spoken to who say they feel terrorized, intimidated. Residents say they feel like hostages. Residents in that area say that they are being held hostage, that this freedom convoy, as they call it, has essentially imposed a lockdown on them.
Some protesters harassed a soup kitchen.
These anti-vaxxers actually took food from the mouths of the homeless.
Hungry, yeah.
Because they're so put upon.
There have not been any violent outbursts. However, horns have been honking for 12 to 21 hours a night.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing.
Many of them are holding Confederate flags.
I've heard there's QAnon supporters in the crowd.
We've seen swastikas. We've seen the Confederate flag. We've seen flags with Justin Trudeau, our prime minister, in a noose. Lots of Donald Trump flags as well. People chanting, "Let's go, Brandon."
There's actually one of the rare times in history you're going to see swastikas and yellow stars at the same protest.
A few people shouting and waving swastikas does not define who Canadians are.
Did you know that during the Second World War, some Ukrainians served in the Waffen-SS? And did you know that in smaller Ukrainian circles today, these men are being celebrated?
We have here in the chamber today Ukrainian Canadian world veteran from the Second World War who fought the Ukrainian independence against the Russians and continues to support the troops today, even at his age of 98. His name is Yaroslav Hunka. And I was going to say he's in the gallery, but I think you beat me to that. But I'm very proud to say that he is from North Bay and from my riding of Nipissing-Temiskaming. He's a Ukrainian hero, a Canadian hero, and we thank him for all his service. Thank you.
Ottawa is being besieged by a group of anti-do-anything-about-COVID truckers called the Freedom Convoy. A so-called Freedom Convoy.
So-called Freedom Convoy of truckers. It's a cult.
Yes, it is. We've heard it called a nationwide insurrection, a threat to democracy, an insurrection, sedition.
This is a moment for responsible leaders to think carefully about where they stand and who they stand with.
A bunch of people in Western Ukraine joined Hitler and welcomed the Nazis and formed a Waffen-SS division, and they all had a lot of fun. One of them indeed wrote that it was the best times of his life, 1941 to 1943. Fast forward, and they painted themselves as war victims and as freedom fighters, and then Canada took them in with open arms. They continued having fun in Canada. They built monuments to themselves. They had lives. They grew old. And one of them was celebrated 3 days ago in the Canadian Parliament, where he was presented as a fighter against Russia, which he technically was alongside Adolf Hitler and others who fought against Russia.
Yeah.
Ivan Kachanovsky, who is a professor from University of Ottawa, he was the first one to report about him on Twitter, and then I was the first one to write a story about him, and eventually things went not as good for him. So right now Poland is thinking of possibly looking into extraditing him for war crimes, and Justin Trudeau issued a half apology before talking about how we need to be careful about Russia, because that's what it's really about, Russia. And the Speaker of the House resigned, and Volodymyr Zelensky, who was there, and who was one of the people enthusiastically cheering for him, has so far said nothing at
God, I hope they just play that over and over and over for the rest of my life. That is the only thing that finally burst that Ukrainian, Canadian, emigre Nazi bubble, because nothing else would do it. It's incredible. Like, there was that pause when he says, and he fought the Russians in World War II, and all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute. Russians were allies. But then he just kind of went on, and it was just like a slight little brain fart, but they're so deep. I mean, they've been doing this over and over so often that I think that no one expected that this would actually be the thing that got them in trouble, because this has been going on endlessly. And I spoke to my sources in Canada, but I was having like back and forth with other people who've been researching this in Canada, who've been extremely frustrated for many years now about how hard it is to break through into the Canadian discourse. It's like, these are Nazis, but we talked about this, and this was different. And narrative rebuttals like, he was only 16 or 17. Yeah, well, when he was, then he wrote that 1941 to 1943 were the best years of his life, and then he joined the Waffen-SS.
Volunteered,
like, he volunteered, but
right.
it's like, but he's 80 now. Yeah, and somebody said, he's only 80 when he wrote that those were the best years of his life. I mean, maybe when he's 90.
I mean, look, when you were 16 years old,
he was naive. He was a naive 80-year-old.
Yeah,
he was talking about his youth in general. He was talking about his youth.
A babe in the Nazi woods. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, this is the culmination. I think the people who don't really know the backstory to how the Canadian Parliament can actually, bring a Nazi into the gallery and give like a full house standing ovation, like it's the end of
that
Phantom,
was like 20
opera
seconds
or something.
long. I know. No, that was
it was like
Pope
please come out one more time. Yeah, exactly. It was like a full. I mean, it's like what now? I don't know how many years it's been. It's what, 75. It's been at least a 75-year-old project. Ever since the end of World War II. I mean, a 75-year-old project to buy this Ukrainian community that's been in exile in Canada. That, I mean, not everyone was like a fascist or Nazi collaborator, but the core of that community, like so the brain trust of that community, they were extremely ideological. They were part of this hardcore fascist movement that wanted to create a kind of a version of what Hitler was doing in Germany. They wanted to create that for themselves in Ukraine. They wanted to create a racially pure Ukraine, free of Jews, free of Poles, free of Russians, and they nearly succeeded. And a lot of these people, either through just as in leadership roles or an actual hands-on experience, ethnically cleansed and genocided Jews and Polish people from the territory of what is modern, Western Ukraine and now, and even central Ukraine. They went pretty far. They went pretty far to the east, and so a lot of these people, the Brain Trust, found refuge in the West. They found refuge in America. They found refuge in Canada. They found refuge in the UK. And with support from, I won't name these institutions, three-letter agencies, frequently, they had funding from the U.S. government, from covert projects, from the CIA. And they didn't need this help, but they had it, and they had their support. And they essentially went on this revisionist. They did this revisionist project where they recast their sort of genocidal fascist political movement into one that was about democracy. One was about just fighting communism,
decolonialism, right? Or decolonization.
Yeah, like that would be called. Yeah, they were like they were trying to decolonize Ukraine from the Soviet Union, and so
it's been suggested that hundreds, possibly thousands of Nazi Ukrainians were allowed into Canada. Now, I'm not saying go on a witch hunt, but I think that's something that Canadians should be aware of. And also, how many other things have gone on that Canadians didn't know? They didn't know about the CIA doing experiments on Canadians in Canada. That's fact. I mean, you can just go down a whole slew of stuff where people and the country has been used like a guinea pig. Oh yeah, let's test out some new defoliant flying over forests in Canada. See how it works. Oh, and the defoliant made some people sick. Shit happens. We gotta know more truth. We gotta know that the world is not all standing with Western hegemony. We gotta know that the world isn't all standing with Israel. As a matter of fact, more and more countries are pulling away from supporting Israel, and that'll hurt the West ultimately.
Speech about the Israeli-Palestine conflict, which has sent shockwaves to everyone.
Palestine support is an unwavering support that we give unashamedly, because we know the pain that can be caused by occupiers. We still live with occupiers ourselves to date. We know what the people of Palestine are going through, because when they get removed in Gaza by force, to us it's not theory. We lived forced removals ourselves here in South Africa. We know what is torture. We've been tortured. Till today, we remain a traumatized nation. We support Palestine, and we make no apology about supporting Palestine. Our support for Palestine is not a calling for killing Jewish people. Hamas, that we said we are supporting, that will arm. It must know that the EFF is not in a struggle of killing Jewish people, of killing pregnant Jewish women and children. Do not involve the innocent. in your fight. Always, as we fight Palestine, Israeli government, the apartheid Zionist Israeli government, let us know where our target is. It is everything else that represents Zionism, everything else that represents apartheid Israel must be shot down and dropped. But that should never be confused with killing of Jewish people. So for you not to make a mistake, you may want to familiarize yourself with the literature, so that you don't go around people's door to door and say, no, the Jews are killing Palestinians, they were going to kill the Jewish people. We're not killing any Jewish person. We're not supporting any organization that says it wants to kill Jewish pregnant women and children. We're not part of that nonsense. A revolutionary at all material times must be guided by the feelings of love. We love humanity. Therefore, we love our women and our children. How do you bomb a hospital? Even if the president of Hamas ran into that hospital, is hiding in that hospital, you can't bomb that hospital. How do you bomb a refugee camp? Even if Hamas ran into that refugee camp, you are in no position to bomb a refugee camp. Comrades, those guys are involved in ethnical cleansing. They want to wipe off the Palestinians. This is a genocide. It's an international crime, and ICC must issue a warrant of arrest against Netanyahu. Why do you issue warrant of arrest on Putin, who has not done worse than what Netanyahu has done to the people of Palestine?
You know, the West is going to have some understanding as to why so many Aboriginal, indigenous people are pissed. They're pissed about what has happened to them when they were under the control of Western nations and Western invaders. They're pissed. So now Africa, which is a very vital continent, not just gold and diamonds, but all the rare earth minerals and all the climate for agriculture. Europe has been getting a lot of its winter vegetables from Africa. Big farms have been set up to supply them. They start, oil, gas, so many things. Africa is vital, and they kind of are pissed that they've been treated like Palestine is being treated now, so they're going to stand up with them. You can't blame them. But we should also understand he's very talk about not about killing. Not about killing. That's not what it's about. And even in that, so much truth that our media, just neglects to inform you about. Like, how about not all Jewish people support Israel's attack on Gaza, killing, all those people. They don't support Hamas for killing Jews, but they don't think this retribution is wise.
Thousands of demonstrators filled the main floor and steps of Grand Central Terminal Friday, waving Palestinian flags, wearing black T-shirts, and shouting a number of chants, including "Let Gaza Live." Let Gaza live! The protest, organized by the group Jewish Voice for Peace, brought together Jewish New Yorkers and supporters of Palestine.
Nobody's safety can come at the expense of another people's safety. Right now, we're seeing that the fate of Palestinians and Israelis is intertwined because every bomb that drops on Gaza endangers the 2.2 million Palestinians there, as well as the hundreds of Israelis held hostage.
The protests causing disruptions for commuters during rush hour as several entrances were blocked. Janice Fung came all the way from Westchester and had trouble figuring out how to get out of the station.
Supposed to meet up with friends, but now I think they're not in traffic in the city, but like, I guess it's kind of like, oh, now where do I meet them? How do I even get out of the area?
Sources say NYPD arrested close to 300 people, possibly more.
Because it's important to show that we can't just let life go on as usual. So we're here with hundreds, thousands, I think there are thousands here, of those Americans saying, yes, we want a ceasefire, and we're showing you that we want it.
The taking away of babies, children's families, the killing of innocent civilians, none of it is okay, but it's incredibly important to acknowledge that what's happening to Palestinians has been happening for decades, and it must end now.